We want to thank everyone again for joining us today. This is our second Farm Smart Live. So every Friday, you will find us here at 9:30. And we'll be able to find out more about agriculture here in Imperial Valley. Last week, we did a great tour of our center here and learned more about why research is important to the agriculture here in Imperial Valley. And today we're going to specifically talk about cattle. Boys and girls, did you know that cattle is the #1 ag commodity? It grosses the most dollars here in Imperial County for agriculture. And so cattle is a big deal here. And you know, here in California, cattle is the #1 agricultural commodity. And so that plays in a lot to the beef industry here in Imperial County also too. So we're going to learn a lot about beef cattle today and about what we use beef cattle for and how we raise them here in Imperial Valley. Teachers, I want to remind you that we do have materials on our website that are available to follow up with any lesson plans or any additional information that you want to use with your students. So can I hear from my feedlot people? Is Brooke out there? Go ahead, Brooke.
Thank you. Well, welcome everyone to the Desert Research and Extension Research Feedlot. This is a feedlot that we do a lot of our research at, and right now we have about 225 head of cattle here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history, and then I'm going to talk about what we are doing here relative to all of the livestock here in the Imperial Valley. So this feedlot has been around for a long time, and in the 1950s and 60s, a lot of really important research has been done here regarding the energetics, or how much energy these cattle need to grow big and strong. And from that, we've been able to develop more and more research to help local Imperial County farmers and throughout the state and the country. So right now, you'll see that all of our cattle here are Holsteins. Holsteins are a very popular dairy breed. The cows make great milk, but we're using the males. So these are all Holstein steers. They all come from the dairy industry, and we raise them after they go to a calf ranch, which is where they're grown from babies to about 300 pounds. They come here, and from about 300 pounds to 1,400 pounds, they're grown here. And so they grow over 1,000 pounds in under a year here. And that's really important because that is how all of the Imperial Valley right now operates. Most of the cattle here are Holsteins. So they grow a great deal, and to do that, we feed them a lot of high energy foods like corn. Corn has a lot of energy, and it allows the cattle to grow really, really fast. And so here I'll show what some of their feed looks like in their box. So you'll notice that it's a mixture, or as Stacy told me, she likes to call it a cow salad, of many different things that my colleague Pedro will talk to you a little bit about. But the important part is that these cattle have a really interesting digestive system that helps them digest all of the food we're giving them. They have 4 compartments in one stomach, whereas our stomach as humans is just one compartment. They have 4 different areas to help digest the food, which means when the food goes into the rumen, the biggest part of their stomach, they have millions of microbes that are bacteria, fungus, protozoa, and they help break down all of this food so that they can better utilize all of those nutrients. And so that is the one special part of these cattle, and because of that, we're able to feed them things like forage, such as Bermuda grass hay, Sudan hay, which are both largely grown in the Imperial Valley also. So as I said, these guys are great recyclers, or great users of food, often food that humans can't use, but they do a great job of growing fast and making a great meat product. A lot of people like to think that Holsteins don't make great food. They make excellent meat. So now I'm going to send it over to my colleague Pedro to talk to you more about the feed that they eat.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Brooke, for showing us a little bit about the history, about the Imperial Valley and everything. It's my pleasure to be here and to talk to you guys a little bit about what we are feeding those animals, what is in that salad that Brooke was just showing us. And one thing that we have to have in mind is that even though we are looking at this nice steer calf, this Holstein steer, a lot of time when we are feeding those animals, we have to think that we are also feeding that huge microbial population that we have in the rumen. So a lot on the stomach of the calf, there's a lot of microbes, and those microbes are going to help the animal to break down that diet and digest that diet. So there are a lot of microbes that are going to help. And we also have to think not only in feeding that animal, but also feeding those microbes. And we want to give those microbes the appropriate minerals and vitamins that we have to eat. A lot of times our moms ask us that we have to have a colorful plate. We have to eat a lot of feed to make sure that we get every single bite of different ingredients in our diet. And that's what we want to do as well. Make sure that we are feeding the appropriate ingredients to those animals so they can grow well, healthy, and produce a really nice food to us. So I will be showing you guys right now, we are located in our, let me just try to turn on my camera. Yeah, that's our feed mill here. It's been operated for many, many years. And what we want to do is make sure that we are mixing that diet well, so that feed that Brooke showed you, it's feeding the microbials and the animals well. So we have right here, we have, this is urea that we include. We have different ingredients. We have different minerals. We have vitamins for the animals. So what we want to make sure is that we are providing the right nutrients for that calf to grow. And because we are also in a research center here, a lot of times what we want to do is investigating what is the best feed. So we want to mix the diet really well and test different ingredients to make sure that those animals are growing well and better. So how we first started. So first thing that we have to do, we have feed bins up there, and they are storing food. They are kind of fridge at home. So we keep the food up there, and we break them down here, and we mix those diets. So that's when we are actually, let's say, cooking our lunch today. So we are cooking the diet here. We have a lot of buttons here that we organize it. So it's an example, our final diet that we want to feed those animals. So in this case here, for example, we are feeding 68% corn. That's the main energy. We want those animals to grow and healthy and everything. So we want to feed them a lot of energy so they can grow. And the corn is the main source of energy that we have available in the US. There are a lot of other types of feed that we can feed to animals, especially ruminants. Remember, we are talking about not only feeding a cattle, we are talking about feeding the microbes. And the good thing about these microbes is that they can digest and break down feed that us humans or other animals cannot. So we can feed a lot of things to cattle that we won't be able to eat. So a lot of things that we will be wasting or throwing out or becoming trash, because of this huge microbial population, now we can feed them to cattle, and then cattle can convert them to a really nice steak for us. So here I have a few examples that I'm going to show you guys. So does everybody know what is this? If I show you, you're probably wearing this right now. That's a cotton, right? There is a cotton seed in here, and there is a lot of leftover from producing things that we wear on daily basis that we would be wasting. But because of the microbes and the cattle, we can actually feed that to cattle. That's a sugar beet residue that we can also include in the diets. And for those of you who love almonds, there is a lot of almond hulls that we would be wasting, but we actually can feed them to animals, and those cattle can convert those really hard thing here to really nice milk or beef that we will be eating in our lunch or dinner tonight. We also can feed those animals oil to increase the energy. We know that if we put fire on this, it's gonna burn a lot. So there's a lot of energy here, and we can also include that in the diet. In our system here, we have something that's called, we can do is steam flake the corn. I just mentioned that the corn is the largest energy source that we have available in the US. So one thing that we do here in our system particularly, what we do, we cook that corn, and then we press that corn really hard. And what we'll be producing is something that some of you might see in your breakfast this morning. This is a steam flake corn. It's pretty similar to, it's not the same. We don't have sugars here added here, but it's something really similar to what we eat in our breakfast with milk in the mornings. So what we want to do, we want to get that corn, the whole shelled corn, and press that. So this is going to make that corn that is often really hard. If you try to break a corn kernel with your fingers, you cannot, but we can actually do this with this. So we are trying to facilitate the digestion of the microbes in the rumen with the corn, so they will have even more energy for them to grow and produce feed for us.
Pedro,
One other,
excuse me, Pedro, there's a question about how often the animals eat.
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so what we want to provide the animals is feed available all day long, right? We want to have that feed in the feed bunks that Brooke showed you guys. We feed them in the morning, and their feed is going to be available. Most of the time, right after we feed them, they're going to come and eat, go back and rest a little bit, and then later in the afternoon, they're going to come back again. When it's very, very hot, like was this past summer, the animals were actually not eating the hot time, but they usually eat most of the diet right after we feed them. It all depends what type of the diet. If we're feeding a lot of energy, think about if you're eating a full bar of chocolate. So we eat that and we get full, even though it's really good. We get really full and we want just to rest. And it's think about a Thanksgiving dinner. You eat a lot and you want to rest a little bit because you're so full, there's so much energy. But if you're eating a salad, only salad, you're going to be hungry in a little bit. So if you feed more forage to that animal will probably be spending more time eating, because there's also, when you feed more forage, it's harder to the animal to digest. So the diet is going to change a lot how much time the animal will spend eating. But if we feed more concentrate, more grain, more high energy diets, then we spend less time eating than if we were going to feed them a forage. So if we feed more forage, the animal will spend more hours eating. If we feed more grain, the animals won't spend a lot of time eating. Really depends off the diet. But that's a great question. Thank you very much for the question. If you guys have more questions, please send them to us and we'll be glad to help. I want to show you guys, before I turn back to Brooke, this is what we call the Steelers grain. That is pretty much when we get the corn, and what we want to do, the corn is not only, we don't use corn only for feed, but we also use the corn for producing ethanol. If you guys have heard about producing a more renewable source of ethanol, that we can run our cars without helping the planet and everything. So we want to grow the corn. Then what we do, we extract the fuel from that corn. There's a lot of process on that, and we have this leftover material. Again, I think that's amazing that the ruminants have their microbes, and they are able to digest feed that other animals wouldn't. And one of them is byproducts such as the steelers. We produce a lot of the steelers. About a third of the corn in the U.S. go to the producing ethanol, and the leftover of this we can use to feed cattle. So can you guys see how amazing are the animals here? How amazing are cattle? We are actually getting a lot of leftovers, a lot of byproducts, and converting them to really nice quality beef that we can eat every day. So animals in the U.S., they eat a lot of byproducts, and that helps the planet, that helps us to not waste that thing, and also the byproducts help the producers who are producing those animals. But what I have today, guys, is pretty much it. I can walk a little bit. If somebody has any more questions, I can.
One question I really would like to clear up. Someone was asking about when you showed the cotton, that if that came from sheep. And so we
No.
want to make sure that
Okay.
that was not a sheepskin. Sheep produce wool, which is a fiber, which is part of their skin, a fiber. But cotton is a plant that a farmer grows in order to use the cotton ball to make fibers for our shirts or for a towel or for a sheet. And the part that the cattle eat on the cotton is it's just the seed. Is that correct, Pedro? They
Yes,
we
yes.
just use the cotton seed for the cotton oil. We don't eat the fluffy part. Think about if you put a cotton ball in your mouth, that wouldn't taste very good at all.
Yeah.
The cows don't like that either, but we can squeeze this cotton seeds to make a nice oil to give cows a little bit of fat in their diet. But what we were showing you was not sheepskin, okay? We were showing you some plant cotton that the farmer grows. Now, we don't grow cotton here in Imperial County, so we don't see a lot of cotton here in our valley, but we are actually going to have a field trip to a cotton farm over in Casa Grande, Arizona, coming up in a couple of weeks. So I want to make sure everyone tunes in for the cotton farm tour.
Yes, that's a great explanation. And like Stephanie said, we can process that cotton seed in different ways. We can extract the oil, use the oil for different things, and we can feed that as well. So the last thing that I just want to show you guys, and if you guys are familiar with our area here, we have a lot of grass being grown in the Imperial. So a lot of those are hay. We were producing hay that are going to be what we want to get a bale of hay, and that's not chopped yet, but we want to chop that in smaller particles so it's easier for the animals to eat. So we use forks and knives to cut our salad. The animals don't have that. They can do that with their mouth, and they actually do that really, really well by chewing their diet. But if we can facilitate that to them and chop that before we feeding them, we can actually mix our diet better and feed that well-balanced diet to the animals. So I think the question that I can see here, I'm not sure if I'm seeing all of the questions. There is a question about how many animals we have here in the feedlot or how many animals we have in the valley.
Let's start with how many we have at the feedlot.
Well, in the feedlot here right now, I think we are about 200, a little over 220 animals. But we have the capacity to feed at least 3 times more than that. But right now we are operating in a smaller capacity. But we have 220 steers that we divide them because we are doing research. We divide them in really small groups, and we want to feed the animals different diets to test. Right now we want to test different ingredients. Sometimes we want to test if that byproduct that I was showing you guys, if we can feed them to cattle or not. So we want to maybe include that in a small percent, greater percent. So a lot of times we try to do that, and that's what is our job. We want to see, okay, we have this new technology here. Can we feed that to cattle? So we want to test and see how much we can feed that. In the valley, I think Imperial Valley, if you look the U.S. Department of Agriculture data, actually Imperial Valley is the second most dense county in the U.S. in cattle. So we have over 400,000 animals here in the valley. So there are a lot of cattle. If we drive around, we might be able to see a feedlots close to us. So we have over 400,000 cattle on feed here. They are feeding cattle. There are some operations that only grow the heifers. So they send the heifers from the middle of the state down here so we can feed them until they are ready to calve and produce milk, and they go back up there. But I think I don't know if
can you walk over to where some of the steers are so we can see them a little bit closer?
Yes, of course.
And maybe talk about why the Holstein is so important here in Imperial Valley as far as their heat tolerance and their adjustment here in the desert.
Yeah,
that would be some good information to show.
Of course. So California is one of the largest, if not the largest. They keep, I won't say fight, but it kept changing. The largest dairy producer state in the U.S. So we have over 1.5 million dairy cows in the U.S. in California. I'm sorry, and of course, we wish we could only produce females that will milk, but we also have the male part, like Brooke was telling us. And what we want to do is producing some beef. We can use, even I'm talking about using byproducts and how amazing the beef industry is by using byproducts. When we look at those Holstein steers right here, some people even consider them byproducts from the dairy industry. So what we want to see is feed those animals really well so they can grow and become fat and produce a really nice feed for us. So what we want, we feed here, we get them really young and we grow them. And our system here, we provide shade. So when it's very, very humid, the animals can come and rest and be fine. They are all friendly animals here. And the Holsteins, they do, I won't say better, because when it's really, really hot, 120 degrees, nobody likes to be really outside. But the Holstein, they do pretty well with the weather because they have a really thin skin, so they can be tolerant.
There's a question about how old are these cattle?
So those cattle, they get here, right now they are turning about a year old. I don't know exactly. That's a good question. Brooke would have that number better than I do. But I think yes.
The cattle come in. So right when the cattle are born, they go straight to a calf ranch, and they're raised there for about 3 months. So when they're 3 months old, they come here. And we keep them for about 11 more months to a year. So by the time that we're finished feeding them, they end up being about, well, I have to do the math.
16,
11,
15 months.
15 to 16 months old.
Yes. So right now, since they arrived here with 3 months, and we've been feeding them for almost 10, they're about a year old right now, pretty young guys, and we want to produce younger beef because they are better to eat, I would say.
Do you have someone's asking how much a steer cost?
Brooke, she might know the price.
I don't actually know the price.
Yeah, to buy them, I don't know how much we paid, but usually if we go to a dairy farm and we want to buy those steers, it will vary, but they are usually when they are really baby calves, people are paying from $50 to $200. It all depends where you're buying them. But the most expensive thing about the Holsteins is because we keep them in these diets for so long, and then the most of the cost comes from the feed and not for the animal itself.
Can you tell us what those tags are for in their ears?
Oh, that's great. Good question. So every single animal here, I'm trying to turn my camera on. So every single animal has a tag. You can see that, like this one, 192. Can you guys see that? 192 here. So, and the other tag is a tag that they get right after they go to the calf range that Brooke mentioned. So, and Brooke is going to show us in a little bit where we put the tags. We bring them and we put the tags so we know each animal. So when at the end of the experiment, we want to know how much each animal grow. If one diet grow the animal better than the other diet. So it's really good to have we call the IDs. It's the similar ID that we have to identification. So we want to know which animal is who. So at the end, we can know how much each animal grow itself. We also use that to see if an animal is sick. So if Brooke tells me, okay, animal 192 is sick, I can come here. Or if I tell Brooke, hey, animal 192 is sick, she can come here and she will know, and she can look at the animal, and maybe if needed, we can treat that animal for the sickness. So I want to, if you guys have more questions, please keep asking questions. I want to turn back to Brooke so she will be showing us what we do when those animals arrive and to process those animals and everything. So Brooke.
I think a good question for Brooke as she's starting. Can you just clarify? We have a lot of people asking if there's a difference between a cow and a steer. So can you let us know the difference of why you're saying steer and cattle and not cows?
Right, that's a great question. So cows are a female bovine animal that has given birth to a baby. If we want to talk about a female animal that has not given birth, we call them heifers. So Pedro had mentioned heifers being raised in a heifer ranch. They're getting ready to go to a dairy to become cows by having a baby. We have steers, which is a male bovine animal that has been altered, kind of like when you neuter your pets, your male pets. We do that to them, and that takes them from a bull, an intact bull, to a steer. And so we only use the altered steers here.
Great, thank you.
So like Pedro said, if you can see that over where my camera's aimed, that is where we get the cattle. The trucks bring them in. I saw someone ask how they get here. They travel by truckload, and we'll get all of our cattle in at once over several trucks. Not all of them fit on one truck. And they come down here, and this is our processing area. Now, when we handle animals, we want to make sure we're being careful for our safety and for the animal's safety. So we run them through a chute, and you'll notice that it's sort of curved. And that helps us move the animals without stressing them out too much. They'll keep moving forward along the curve and following each other. And the first thing we'll see is our scale. Because we do research, weighing the animals every month is really important. We want to see how fast they're gaining weight. And so we run them through our scale. And then we have our chute here. And this is our hydraulic chute. And what this can do is open and close and let us catch the animals to safely give them any sort of medication we need to give them. So we give them vaccines when they get here. Any vitamins, we'll give them liquid vitamins in a shot, and that seems to work really well for them. We'll give them hormonal implants that helps them grow. And then, like Pedro said, we give them ear tags. So here is our ear tagging device. Pretty simple. We get the ear tags like this, and we just put them in right when they get here. And that's what we do right away, so we can sort them into groups and start our research. Many of the local feedlots do something similar. They may not weigh as frequently because they don't need to. They're not doing research where they need to prove things. They're just doing it to understand how well those cattle are doing in their system. But this chute is really nice because it gives us the ability to squeeze them. And when you squeeze the cattle, they calm down so that they're not struggling when we're trying to give them their medicine and stuff like that. And then after we're done getting them ready, or after, if they're sick, after we're done treating them, they run down this alleyway and back to their pen.
There's a question about cattle teeth. Are there any special care you have to do with their teeth?
We don't take any care with these guys' teeth. They take care of them themselves, but an interesting part about cattle is the way that their teeth are set up. Because they are herbivores, they have molars to grind all of their food, and they have the teeth in the front in order to grab their food, but they don't have the canines like dogs and cats do that are used to rip. So if you were to look at their mouth, I don't think one will come close enough to let me look, but they are missing teeth on the side of their mouth, and that's on purpose because they don't really need them. But we don't necessarily take any sort of extra action on them. They usually are okay for the duration of their stay here.
There's a question about if we have any other livestock at our farm here, and then also maybe a suggestion on some small livestock that maybe kids might want to raise their own for, like, making a pet.
So the first one was any other livestock on our research facility. Right now, we do not. Sometimes we have sheep here for research or just to graze down the alfalfa like all the other farms will do as well, or some of the other farms will do as well. But right now, we just have the cattle. And what was the second question?
If you have any suggestions for any livestock that maybe some kids could raise, like that would make it like a nice home pet.
Pedro, do you have any suggestions on that one?
I don't want to give any suggestion that their mom won't approve, but but I mean, if you can raise a sheep, I think it's a smaller ruminant that you can raise and take care of it. I think a calf like this one is gonna be really, really big, and your mom, I don't think she will love you having big animal back home. But I think a sheep might be a good option. I don't know, not as a pet, but an animal that you can grow and understand how important is taking care of the animal, how much actually costs to feed the animal. Sometimes we don't really understand that, and having the idea of managing the money, taking care of an animal, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort for all of those producers who are doing that. So it's important, and maybe a sheep is a good option. I don't know about any chicken that you can have back home, and even though that it can be an option for you. One thing that we didn't mention a lot, and it's very, very important, especially over the summer here, is water. We have to make sure that we are providing a clean, nice water for those animals, especially in the hot weather. Water is the most important nutrient. I show you guys a lot of grains, a lot of the byproducts and everything, but we cannot forget about the water. Water is very, very important to the animals, and you have to make sure that we are providing a very nice, clean water to them. This is an example where we have the water, so it's a crystal water here that we are providing to those animals so they can drink over the summer when it's very hot. So
Can
make
you tell
sure
us how much water does one of those steers drink in one day? I know the answer, but I'm testing you.
It's always going to be depends, but I know that in the summer they will drink more, and I saw that the other day, but it's I don't want to.
We always teach in Farm Smart that cows drink about 30 gallons of water a day, which is like a bathtub full. So a bathtub full of water a day is a great way to remember how much water a cow drinks. Is a whole bathtub full in one day. So each one of those steers needs a bathtub full of water every day, right?
Every single day they are eating a lot of water. That's yeah. I was thinking liters. I was trying to make that's about 150 liters something, but they would drink a lot of water every single day. So you have to make sure that you are providing really, really nice water to them when you're feeding them, so they can grow and perform well.
Now someone's saying that they're hungry for a steak now. So just wanted to make sure everyone knows that this is where we get beef. This is where we get a hamburger and a roast and a steak, and this is where it comes from.
Yeah, and it's very important for you guys. I'm glad to be here to be able to share with you guys this type of information, because those animals, they are having a really important role in our system here in the valley and everything in our environment, because they are taking things that we would be wasting, we will be trash, and because cattle have the ability to convert that to a really nice steak. That's very important. We don't always think about them on that way. You just see the steak in our plate and think, oh, that's a really nice steak. But you guys are having a really nice opportunity to be able to see that those animals are amazing animals that can, with collaboration with a lot of microbes, bacteria and everything, that they can produce that steak, because we are using things that we will be wasting in their diet. So that's really good. And you guys are asking great questions. So.
And then Pedro, we have another good question that's coming up in the Q&A. They're asking about the steers' manure. Is there a way to use the manure?
Yeah, Brooke, do you want to talk a little bit how they do this here in the Valley? I have been here for 2 months, but I know a little bit, but I'm sure Brooke will have more information about that.
Sure. So all of the lots here in the valley, the feedlots here in the valley, are what we call dry lot. And that just means, as you can see, the pens are fairly dry and it's mainly just dirt. And so what the feedlots will do is they'll go in once or twice a year and just scrape the top of the these pens. And so what they'll get after that is this dry pile of dirt and manure. And a composting company will come and pick it up from them. And they'll compost that manure to make it safe to use on things like fresh produce or any sort of forage that they want to grow. And it also makes it so it's very nutrient rich. It's a very good additive to soil to help plants grow strong. So yeah, almost all of the manure here is used that way because we're all a dry lot system except for a couple exceptions.
Great, Brooke. I think that's very important. Even I mentioned that we process that diet. We want to make that diet very available to the animal. The animal cannot digest everything. So when we have that manure, there are a lot of nutrients on that manure. And what we want to do is getting the manure and applying that in a field like this one, so they can, the vegetables and the grass can use the manure, the nutrients that the animals didn't digest, and we come and put this here. So that's something to integrate the system and be able to use as much as we can of what we have available, the resource that we have. So.
We have a lot of questions coming in just about the fact that we use cattle for beef and meat. And we just want to say that here at the Research Center, that's what we're here for, is to help farmers and ranchers to have better beef cattle and production here in Imperial County. So I hope that answers some of your questions.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions about do we make milk here? So I just want to clarify, these are steers, they're male. Next week we will be going to a dairy. A dairy is where they have female cows that are making milk and having babies. So we will see cows next week that are that can produce milk. So we will now begin the Q&A portion, the question and answer portion of our webinar. So if you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand and we will answer it in the order they come in.
So these cattle are not organic fed. All of these are being raised on conventional feed, which means non-organic, and that's a different process in order to get certified as feeding organic feed and stuff like that. But these guys are not.
I just want to add one. It's not because they are not organic that means that they are not healthy and safe to eat. There is no research that proves that eating organic or non-organic beef it make it safer or not. So just even though we feed them in a conventional way, they are really healthy and safe food to be eating back home. So it's a good question, great question. Thank you for asking. We get this question a lot, so that's a good question. And I just want to clarify that even though they're raised in a conventional, look at this. This is a really friendly guy. So they can produce a really safe food for us, okay? So cattle can live for a long time. If they are natural, they can live for, I don't know, up to 15, 20 years, but not often. But our animals, we want to short the life of those animals for a little bit so we can produce a nicer steak. As much as the animal grow, it actually makes the meat a little bit tougher, so it's hard to eat, you know. So we want them a little bit younger because they can produce more food for us. But they can live in the U.S. The average we let them live for about 15 to 20 months. The feedlot animals, the animals that we raise for beef, but they can live a little longer than that. But because then they will get like really tough meat, and we don't like that. So we want them to be a little bit younger. But great question, thank you.
Yeah, we'll learn next week at the dairy cows. You can ask them how long they live, because it'll be different from the steers that we're visiting today.
Yes, if we don't take care of them, they can get hurt, and that's something great question. And as the producer and people who are doing research, we don't want to hurt them. We don't want to. We want to take care of them so they get friendly. But sometimes happens that one guy is gonna fail and the other will be really on rush and maybe walking on top of that animal. But we don't want them to get hurt, but they sometimes they do that. Unfortunately, that's not what we want, but that's happened. Like us when we are playing with friends, sometimes we fell down and get hurt as well. So that's not what our mom wants to, but that happens as well. But great question, thank you.
And that'll be our last question. Thank you so much, Brooke and Pedro. We really enjoyed visiting your research feedlot and learning more about our cattle here. Stephanie, if you would like to close us out.
I will. Thank you so much for joining us today. I had a great time meeting all of you. We had almost 200 people on our Zoom today. I want to give a big shout out to Olivia and Emmeline joining us from Denver today. And we hope that you all sign up to see the Shafter Dairy with us next Friday at 9:30. Teachers and parents, remember there are extra resources on our website available to follow up with lessons and activities for today's program. So we'll see you next time.